Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is time for us to get into what might be a total shift for the Zenless Zone Zero community. It is no lie at all that conversations on things like HP inflation, on things like power creep, on things like overly shilled buffs, that's been a concern that's been growing a lot more across the ZZZ player base, and you have a lot more content creators that are going out and taking the time to talk about some of the issues. And the thing is, well, naturally, right, this is something that I've promoted a lot of ZZZ CCs to do. Go ahead, talk about the biggest issues that are going on with the game, the issues that are top of mind for the community, and make content covering that. And you wanna know what the funny thing is? The ZZZ community said that I was encouraging these creators to farm drama. They said that I was encouraging them to create issues, to drama farm, do all of that. When in actuality, that's just what being a good YouTuber is. Because this video is popping the fuck off. It turns out you should make content that people want to watch. And making content about a game and its mechanics, that's not drama farming, ladies and gentlemen. That's good YouTubing. This video is doing awesome. Let's go see why the reception is so positive. They decided to reduce the HP of the boss, but then inflate its defense to levels that have never been seen before.
They're gonna find a way to make the game counter or fight against Miyabi.
Part of the cause of this is HP inflation.
We're tying all this back to the HP inflation.
Today, we're talking about HP inflation.
HP inflation.
HP inflation is outpacing the average of characters.
HP inflation is only a problem if you are dog shit at the game.
I, personally, struggle a lot.
That line from I'm just gonna be honest with you. That line from EO is diabolical. That line from EO is diabolical in context.
At the game.
I, personally, struggle a lot.
If ZZZ keeps inflating the HP in response to the clears of the sweatiest players, it will lose its casual player base, which could be the end of the game.
Right now, today, our roster can still clear, but if this trend continues aggressively, it will become a problem. It's important to note that this is heavily anti-consumer. It pushes players away from pulling who they like and more towards pulling who they need. That tension exists in every gacha, but HP inflation tilts the scale even further toward meta chasing. At this point, it no longer feels like a natural balance adjustment. It just feels like raw inflation to make clears harder.
You're gonna notice that there was a lot of CCs that were saying a lot of different things during that introduction, right? But a lot of the takes that you hear talking about why HP inflation is bad or why there are problems with HP inflation, I don't know, they kind of sound like exactly what the fuck I was saying for 6 months. And that's why I make so many videos in the present saying I was right. And because you want to know what my take was regarding this issue? HP is inflating. It's clearly in the early stages of HP inflation. But there's already been a lot. A couple 100%. And you want to know the other games under the same management, Hoyoverse, that were also easy endgames. And then they started HP inflating. And then it got out of control. And now half the roster is unplayable. Yeah, it's Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. The same exact games that... the same exact company that is also developing or publishing Zenless Zone Zero. And so the take has always been, hey, look at the track record of Hoyoverse. Look at how they've HP inflated in all these other games. That's 1000% going to happen in ZZZ. People like to make the take that, oh, Saint said it was going to happen. HP inflation happens in every game. And so, of course he was right. He just wasn't right then. When my take was simply, this is a Hoyoverse game. They're gonna fuck up the endgame by HP inflating it. And that's what they did.
Last cycle, you scraped by. This cycle, you didn't clear. Not because you built wrong, or you played poorly, or you pulled wrong, but because HP spiked. When HP inflation gets so steep, that you're practically forced into specific characters just to clear it all. It stops being about matchups, it starts being about mandatory pulls. That's not healthy design.
Truth be told, I feel like I'm a little bit late on this, as it seems this entire conversation around ZZZ and its in-game content is reaching a head, and feels like the community has been completely divided on multiple fronts when it comes to the topic. And every day I see more and more fighting amongst ourselves that will ultimately just lead to nowhere.
I think that this discussion in this video has actually been long overdue from Kate, and I think part of it, right, is naturally, and I'm not blaming really him very much at all, not really at all, but there has been a prior conversation that we had, right, on live, on stream, regarding HP inflation, and the unfortunate part about, I feel like, that dialogue was that, well, let's just be honest here, there was a kind of like, at least from my opinion, there was like a reiteration from like the kind of like the past stories that we had heard from Honkai Star Rail. Oh, the 4-star units are still clearing right now. They were taking Sela teams, right? And then basically doing like 0 cycle clears. And they were like, look, see, I played super sweaty and I was able to get the result that I wanted. When the reality of the situation was that, yes, you could do that. But not a lot of people are going to do that to make the older characters work. You're a 1 out of 1,000, 1 million individual. You are the outlier. And using the outlier as the average to talk about the game could potentially be a bit of an issue. And that's the thing, right? Is that wasn't the summary of his argument, but that was like a big point that was brought up. Oh, we can be using all these older units. And currently, I believe in this current state of the game, you really can't be doing that, especially in content like Deadly Assault. And so I feel like coming off of that conversation, right, I personally felt like Kate was on sort of like the, you know, the end of, oh, the game is showing signs of it, but it can definitely be overcome right now. Well, when my argument was bringing in the track record of Hoyo games and then talking about how, yes, that was the case for HSR, that was the case for Genshin, it's no longer the case now. Well, it happened to ZZZ as well. And I guess the thing is that I feel like Kate is doing a lot over here, because one thing for certain is that the ZZZ community has a very adverse idea to the adverse reaction to the idea of HP inflation being in their game or HP inflation being an issue, because, well, they have been dealing with the narrative that the game was going to become exactly like HSR and exactly like Genshin. And now that it's simply entered phase 2, I think it's at a point where it needs to be addressed. And I'm simply glad that content creators are now going out and doing that, because that whole wait and see situation, which I think was kind of like the modus operandi for the CCs around 3 months ago, wait and see, they've waited, they've seen, and there needs to be a response. And that's why every CC is currently talking about HP inflation. I just said, hey, you guys should have known what you were getting yourselves into playing a Hoyo title. You knew this was kind of going to happen. And hey, we could have all spoken about it earlier before it became an issue, but we're speaking about it now after it's become an issue. A late response is still better than no response. So I'm glad it's happening.
So today, I would like to start over and go back to the beginning, work our way down the line, and go over everything that has happened to the game, break it all down, speak on some objective facts, and speak my own truth on the matter.
Let's hear it.
Welcome to my channel. My name is Kate the 7th, and I'll be your host today. Chapter 1. The Dawn of a New Game. On July 4th, 2024, a heavily anticipated Hoyo game has finally hit the gacha market after almost 2 years from the first teaser back on May 13th, 2022. And due to the popularity of other Hoyo brands, such as Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, many players were eager to give this new action RPG a shot. But to say things started off great would...
Why is he playing... okay, I'm just reading chat right now. They're saying he's playing EOS music. Why is the music so sad?
...be falling very short of the truth. as the game's launch was negatively received by many. And while there were a multitude of reasons, the one that stuck to me the most was the combat was too easy. And when you had literal clips of content creators being able to clear the in-game content while being blindfolded, it ended up creating a significant portion of the player base saying that they can just mash to win. And when the combat was such a big selling point for your brand new action RPG, that ended up not being too good of a look. So between patches 1.0 to 1.3 for the in-game content in Zenless Zone Zero, almost anything and everything was beating the game with ease. It didn't matter if people had really bad builds, their agent skills weren't leveled, or even some were using teams with little to no synergy. At the end of the day, they were still clearing the game with relative ease. But because of this, it always put ZZZ in a bad light for anyone trying out the game that wanted more of a challenge.
I think that was definitely the take from individuals who were, I'm just going to be honest, very well invested in the game. I think that there's naturally like a bit of progression that an account needs to go through to actually reach the end game and have like the damage thresholds required to actually like clear, right? And so I always view like the start of the game as you typically don't want to have a very challenging end game clear because it's like, you have a baseline level of investment you're going to need, right? A certain amount of attack, a certain level in your skill, whatever, to actually clear all the way up to the maximum floor as possible, right? Like, you can't just go with, like, level 30 units. I view it from the angle of your baseline endgame that you're having reset doesn't need to be the most sweaty or, like, mechanics-fueled sweatfest ever. And this is also kind of like the thing. I feel like ZZZ actually added in an endgame mode for those people that really wanted the challenge called the Tower, right? I'm waiting to see what the take is on that because I've always felt like their implementation of the Tower kind of like was their sweat mode for like the people that really wanted a challenge. And the problem that I viewed with the game was them going ahead and instead of taking their furnished endgame mode with the challenges built in, they just made the challenge part bleed into the stuff that was giving out the polychromes, the limited resources.
From terms being thrown around such as baby game, this is a mash fest, or my favorite, skillless zone zero. It was pretty clear how a lot of people outside of the community really felt, to the point where even some made skits to make fun of the game even more, while trying to boost up.
Okay, that's a 3.6k view, Andy. Okay, that's alright.
Others in the space simultaneously. And I know some players in the space still haven't come to terms with this yet, but there was a little bit of truth in their words, even if a lot of it was over-exaggerated. Let me explain. From July 4th to December 17th of 2024, the game that we played back then is nothing to what we have now, combat-wise. From being limited mechanically by forced QTEs on chain attacks, heavily limiting our combos, to only having one ultimate shared across the entire team, making any agent who isn't a damage dealer practically have no ultimate inside their entire kit. And
oh, yeah. Let's be real here. ZZZ's combat was like, I would dare say, actually felt like it felt like to a large number of degrees kind of shitty. Because of like that one ultimate thing. I that was a concern that I had since the launch of the game. I was like, why do characters like fucking Nicole, why does she have an ultimate? Why do those characters even have an ultimate when you're only going to use one every single fight and it's guaranteed to only be your DPS character using them? I guess like that to me was like at a fundamental baseline of design, it was just like, what the fuck was even going on here? I think that the whole community though unilaterally agrees that was like a fucking very odd decision by the devs.
in-game HP being so low that you never once had to A, interact with enemy mechanics, or B, learn how to play your team better. For a painstaking 5 months, we were locked into limited creativity in a game that didn't feel rewarding unless you were just a diehard fan such as myself. And while patch 1.1 did help to a certain extent with creativity by adding manual chain attacks, it still felt like something was missing. So the beginning of the game was a lot of growing pains that we as a community had to overcome.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why ZZZ doesn't have currently any existing like established gacha CCs who regularly do content on it, right? They don't really have a lot of like those creators that, you know, cover a wide variety of games, go ahead and then just, you know, decide to pick up ZZZ and put it into their portfolio as well. There's a couple that like log on every once in a while, pull some characters, and then make content off of that. But it's not like, yeah, it's not like somebody decided to go ahead and make ZZZ like a cornerstone of like their portfolio.
However, that script would soon flip on its head shortly after, on December 18th, 2024, as in-game content would change forever. Chapter 2: The Turning Point.
Is he gonna talk about how this character ruined the game?
Saying patch 1.4 breathed life into the game would be quite an understatement, as 1.4 was truly the turning point for Zenless Zone Zero. By serving as a soft relaunch for the game to incentivize new players to give it a try and inspire old players to return. And they did this by giving out satisfactory rewards, while also giving away a free S-rank DPS agent in Haramasa, while also releasing the most anticipated agent in the game's short history, Miyabi. But the most important thing for me was the changes to the combat. By completely overhauling the old decibel system and introducing a new in-game mode. But still to this day, some players will downplay how big of a change this actually was, so please allow me to explain. Allowing every ultimate to be used on your team is more than just a damage increase. It's more than just mere style points.
It made the game not feel stupid. 1000%. The games finally started making more sense, like why characters even had an ultimate that could be leveled up in the first place. It 1000% felt like ZZZ was incomplete until 1.4.
It was a fundamental change to how we approached the game as a whole, as ultimates from supports such as Nicole, Sokaku, and Lucy gave more energy to your team. Ultimates from stun agents allowed for not only quicker, but more controlled timing to stun enemies. And defense agents like Caesar could finally use their ultimate and do... This completely changed teams' rotations, and it opened up a new level of skill and player expression. And by combining the decibel change with the manual chain attacks added back in 1.1, they finally gave those who wanted more everything they needed, while still making the game more fun for those on the casual side of the audience as well.
I think that checks out for 1.4. There's a reason why. So basically, let me just provide you all a little bit of context on my end for how I feel about some of like the 1.4 updates. I thought they were great, right? I really liked where the game was at 1.4. I actually played it a lot from versions 1.4 to 1.5. I was, you could actually say I was like a somewhat like, you know, giga casual. By giga, I mean like well invested, spending a lot of time casual for the game. And there's a reason why whenever we look at things like HP inflation in the game mode, it's entirely like fully 100% centered on where the game was in version 1.4, right? Where the game was prior to the triple ultimate change. And you'll notice over here, right? My first complaints with HP inflation really started at around here, where we saw like these big, steeper increases that have just, you know, been getting steeper over time. And the thing is, right, you already had like so many cycles to adjust for it, but then the HP just kept going. And so this looks like HP inflation from the perspective of, okay, it's like these new characters are coming out that are insanely broken, like your Astra Yaos and stuff like that, right? And yes, they're increasing the damage everywhere, but that's where the whole must-pull argument is coming from, right? We heard that from the monologue of this video at the start. You now have those characters that feel like they're must-pulls, like roster checks. And if you don't have them, then it feels like clearing the game is going to become a lot more difficult. Well, that's because HP inflated as those characters started getting released. The must-pulls.
So no matter what kind of player you were, this was a win for everyone. And what better way to show this newfound player expression than with a new game mode that gave you the ability to perfect your team's rotations and strategies.
But yeah, since we're still on the topic of version 1.4, I thought the game was at a really good spot at this point.
In the new Deadly Assault. When Deadly Assault first came out, it was incredible, as getting all the premium rewards were set at a low bar, while still allowing those who wanted to push their teams to the limit. And for the first 6 months of the game mode, every single reset, we would see players from around the world discover new combos, rotations, agent techs, and synergies. Watching the community come together to perfect things while letting players who are on the casual side not have to try too hard to get all their polychrome was such an amazing sight to see.
And that's how it should be, right? If you're somebody that's giga sweating, wants to do all your shit absolutely crazy, right? That's what we tell these motherfuckers in Wuthering Waves. Okay, go have fun clearing the tower in a minute with your disgusting quick swap tech. I'm going to sit here and go play my Havoc Rover, Shorekeeper, Sanhua team and just do regular rotations. Yeah, I'll just do that. I'll clear in a minute and 10 seconds. You can do your sweaty quick swap shit and clear in 45. I don't care, though, because I don't feel like doing that, right? Because I'm a bit more of a casual player. That's the example. And for ZZZ, that's why I talk about 1.4 being so good. And that's why I actually hadn't made very many complaints about Deadly Assault at all in the history of the game until they were really bad resets, because there was something for everybody. Casuals get their rewards easy. Casuals don't have to do any wild shit or jump through any crazy hoops to get what they want. But then the sweaty people that want to show off, that want to kill the boss in a game mode where the boss isn't supposed to be killed, they can do whatever they want.
And I remember telling my good friend Leno, there's no possible way anyone could push these teams any further. And week after week, having to eat my words, as they would find a way to go even further beyond. But also, during this time, Miyabi was released and was set as the new power ceiling of the game, and would remain there for...
Yixuan is going to be one of the only characters who can deal with this content.
Chapter 3. A heretic appears.
That's why I had to give you guys some context beforehand, because I apparently have my own chapter in this video.
The release of Miyabi
But yeah, Kate's cool.
in 1.4 was a weird case for many reasons, as she was by far the strongest DPS agent in the game, reaching new damage ceilings other agents couldn't even fathom.
And this is also another reason why I talk about the HP inflation so much, starting from 1.4. Because a lot of people came back. Miyabi's banner was the whole 42-day patch. They gave out a fuck ton of pulls. And the expectation, almost, what it felt like, was that the devs expected you to have this character that deals more damage than an M6 1.0 unit, Ellen. It felt like the devs expected you to have this unit. And if you didn't, then she was basically telling you to go fuck yourself or play the game like a job, because she did so much more damage than everybody else.
It felt like anything her sword touched just disappeared, and many players started saying nothing in ZZZ was Miyabi resistant, trivializing the content with little effort.
That was the case. You would use her against ice-resistant bosses, and she would be better than using the element that the boss was weak against because she did so much damage.
It got to the point where if you didn't pull for Miyabi, some players in the community would laugh or shame you. And trust me, I know. She was so much stronger than anything else on her release that agents like Ellen Joe were constantly catching strays. And a great example of this was the infamous damage calculation that showed M0 Miyabi being better than M6 Ellen. Just keep in mind that this was pre-buff Ellen.
I don't think that matters. That's I'm just gonna call it what it is. That's developer malpractice. I don't care if it was pre-buff Ellen. That's what you call developer malpractice. That means that they play tested it and they were like, yeah, this is fine, which is malpractice. Or B, they just designed her the way she was and then didn't play test it and then released her. That's just also developer malpractice. No matter what it is, it's fucking developer malpractice. I don't know how else you can rationalize it. I don't care that they buffed her afterwards. It's like, well, why in the first place?
But as the great saying goes, with great power comes great drama. And my source to that quote is, I made it the f*** up. On December 26, 2024, St. Tontas made his first video on ZZZ.
Yep. That's actually the first one. People might say, oh, he's been spreading misinfo about HP inflation this whole time. No, my first video was about how this character fucked your game in the ass. No lie. That this was the first ever video. It was based off of this. Her being this broken.
And let's just say, the community wasn't, happy. God, that thumbnail is beautiful. I mean, it's a problem. It's a problem. I could...
It's a good thumbnail, though.
Sit here and go through the ongoing war between St. Tontas and the ZZZ community, but I don't get paid enough for that. Whether you hate him or love him, or whether you agree or disagree, it is an undeniable fact that the term HP inflation would become a lot more prevalent throughout the entire community after his arrival.
You're not wrong. Yep. So basically, you can kind of summarize it this way. All the videos that are being made about HP inflation right now, they'll rehash pretty much around 60 to 75% of the stuff that I was saying before. And then the other 40 to 25% of those videos is me giving examples of how Hoyoverse games have been fucked by Hoyoverse. And that I'm listing out how the signs of ZZZ right now, there's writing on the wall that Hoyoverse is going to fuck ZZZ as well. So that's the part, right, that doesn't get talked about in the present day videos. Because it has happened.
And this would lead to some players asking questions on different platforms, such as, is Miyabi too strong?
Yes.
Was she actually a problem?
Yes.
Would Hoyoverse start expecting more players to have her and increase the in-game content accordingly?
Yes, they did that. I like, this is the thing. It's like, it all happened. 1,000,000% it all happened.
Making accounts without her fall behind. It actually got to the point where brief comparisons with a character named Acheron from Honkai Star Rail were being drawn.
And that's a big cornerstone of my video, right? And I'm glad that Kate mentions this, because I viewed the release of Miyabi as basically adjacent to the release of Acheron in Honkai Star Rail. And if you're familiar with the trajectory of power creep in HSR, after the release of Acheron, every single DPS that came out afterwards was essentially at a new level compared to the older ones. She raised the power ceiling of the game of like just DPS characters as a whole and just did basically 50% more damage than everybody else. Straight up. You look at every DPS character released before Acheron and you're like, okay, they're undeniably actually not that good. E0S1 Dan Hung ill. Ew, Dan Hung ew. Jing Liu, she got reworked because she was dog shit. Blade, he got reworked because he was dog shit. Seela, they're now reworking her because some dumbass, Mr. Pokey, uploaded a comment about how Seela can still zero cycle because a guy invested 3 years of his life in fucking Trailblazer fuel to fucking build their Seela and so she can zero cycle. And it was like, there's no power creep. Look, guys, you're greedy and stupid. That's probably not the reason why, but I like to headcanon that as the reason why Seela hasn't gotten fixes yet. You look at all the other 1.0 DPSs and you're like, what are these joke-ass, like, Argenti? Like, get the fuck out of here, bro.
So when the patch 1.6 drip marketing happened a couple months later, and the new agent revealed was Soldier Zero Ambi, whether you want to believe it or not, there was a mild concern to see what direction Hoyoverse would take, as they just released Astra Yao in 1.5, bringing a new level of support the game had never seen.
That made it a bit of a 1-2 punch. And I think it really accentuated the issues. You went from the best DPS in the game, Miyabi, getting released, into the best support in the game getting released. It was like one after the other. And then you want to know what kind of spiced up the issue even more? Evelyn also released in 1.5. And guess what? Evelyn with a lighter had damage that was like, it got close to Miyabi. And she was just way better than every other DPS in the game. Other than Miyabi. That was Evelyn.
And right after, they were now about to make the current face of the game into an S-ring DPS. Would they continue to push the agent ceiling? Or was Miyabi just a special case, being a Void Hunter?
I think Silver Ambi kind of feels like the exception. That's my take. I think they just undertuned the fuck out of her for some godforsaken reason. But then you look at like Evelyn, you look at Hugo, you look at Yishuan. I think they're definitely at that next level where they're all comparable to Miyabi. And there's also a reason why Silver Ambi is getting buffed. Yeah, the ZZZ devs have straight up said they're reworking the character. So I do wonder what she's going to be looking like afterwards. I do have to say, they buffed her pretty fast. Maybe she'll be on banner soon.
But I believe we all know what actually happened soon after. However, I still believe patches 1.5 through 1.7 are very interesting to go back and look at, because there was a common trend being set during this time.
Yep.
Chapter 4. The Calm Before the Storm.
Let's keep improvisations on stage, shall we?
Patches 1.5 through 1.7 was a special time for the game, in my honest opinion. They made it clear no DPS was going to overtake Miyabi anytime soon, with the releases of Evelyn, Sambi, and Hugo, while also releasing more general agents for more teams at the same time, like Astra Yao, Trigger, and Vivian. And outside of a couple of
Astra Yao, Vivian, and Trigger are broken units. I want to get that straight. Astra Yao is fucking astronomically fucking absurd compared to every other support in the fucking game. I think she's at Miyabi level 1,000,000%. Trigger has like a 36% defense reduction built into her kit. Sorry, not her kit. 36% defense reduction built into her weapon that allows you to trivialize miasma mechanics, and so she ended up increasing in value absurdly increased in value after the release of 2.0 and its miasma mechanics. And then what's her name? Vivian is just the best anomaly, or sorry, was the best anomaly unit in the game, still is for certain archetypes. And I think Vivian actually took Bernice out to the shed and just GPQ'd her in the head. I'm gonna be real. I think if you have Vivian and the boss isn't ether immune, you would have no reason to ever use Bernice ever again.
exceptions. No boss felt too restrictive, and it genuinely felt like player expression was at an all-time high.
Song on my skin, I count like shooting star, you can never resist. Rap pick, no man, that just might be me. It might clear this in the ceiling, could be a limit. I'm coming to you where upside down. Suddenly,
okay, what is this like montage?
we can't stay but toe down. Play yo-yo to keep me turning, spin me up. Yeah, wait, don't stop. Got a better thing, better all mine. Man, my own best.
Bro got a commercial break. Bro got a commercial break.
Keep your eyes on me.
It's like an ad. Bro's editor was like, yo, can I put an AMV in there? Yo, Kate, can I put an AMV in there?
Keep your eyes on me.
Yo, that frame paused on her armpit for a reason. Why'd they do that?
ZZZ was in a pretty solid spot during this time, but as patch 1.7 drew closer and closer to its end, the game and its community would be put through its next big test, moving into patch 2.0. And oh boy, were we in for a ride.
Oh yeah?
Chapter 5, the first anniversary.
Just for some context, this is the anniversary where I'll just go ahead. I'll take a look at my channel history over here, boys. So this is the anniversary that I said, not the worst one. I said it was mid. I said this anniversary looked aight. It wasn't anything special, and it 1000% was not better than Wuthering Waves. It wasn't really like a standout of its own, right? This video got heavily brigaded by the ZZZ community because all I said was getting a standard unit and a standard W engine on characters that you will never use because nobody's ever using the standard units in ZZZ because of how good the new units like Astra, Yao, Miyabi, etc. are. That doesn't really mean much, especially when the update for ZZZ 2.0 itself is giving you 20 pulls more than a regular patch. Because ZZZ was advertising 30 pulls for their anniversary. They always give out 10 every patch though. So the only thing that differentiated this anniversary from any regular patch was literally 20 pulls, and then a standard unit you're not going to use, and then a standard W engine that you're also probably not going to use. So that was the take. I was like, it's aight. I'd rather have Woo-Wah with its 40 plus pulls from login rewards than whatever this is. And I got brigaded for it. There's a reason why I am continually dancing on the graves of ZZZ anniversary enjoyers. I always ask them, what did they do with their free standard character? Oh, I got my M1 Rena. When's the last time you used Rena? 5 months ago. There were people telling me that the standard unit and the standard W engine were actually worth 160 pulls. It was only worth 160 pulls if you had 160 chromosomes.
With the first anniversary for Zenless Zone Zero finally here in 2.0, players had a lot to look forward to. Whether it was continuing the main story, the 2.0 anniversary rewards, or getting their hands on our new Void Hunter level agent, Yixuan. Everything looked promising in the beginning, and seemed like ZZ could have a seamless 2.x version era. However, even with all this, the talk about HP inflation in the game's future didn't die down. In fact, it grew.
Yeah, because it got worse.
But if we were to go and reference these charts here, we can see at the beginning of 2.0, it was not inflation, but rather HP deflation for both shield defense and daily.
I like that he showed the whole chart. You know what? I respect that. I respect that he showed the whole chart, because then you see after the deflation, it's like, woo! Right afterwards, bro. Oh my god. That is the steepest incline on the chart, is right after their deflation is like the most inflation. Hey, I respect him showing that though. It would have been a lot easier to take this point if he had like cut off. If he had like cut off, right? That entire side. Like right fucking here.
Inflation, but rather HP deflation for both shield defense and daily assault.
Okay. HP deflation is when it goes down. Did it actually go down? Yeah, it did. Okay. Yeah, no, okay.
For both shield defense and daily assault. Shout out to my friend Fish, by the way. He made all these charts for me, and I greatly appreciate it. Link to his spreadsheet in the description below. But HP is not the only thing being brought up this time as well. As with the introduction of Yixuan, we now had access to a brand new class called Rupture. And following the introduction of Rupture came a new enemy mechanic called Miasma. And while yes, this mechanic was designed with Rupture in mind, it still felt fair.
I'm still in the boat. If you're gonna release a new mechanic that gives you so much defense, you effectively have 99% damage reduction on the boss, which is Miasma, that's how it works. And then you release in the same patch a character who ignores defense with their regular attacks via being a Rupture agent. And then you also have a pass character called Trigger, who has a W engine that reduces an enemy's defense as well. That just inherently feels extremely pay to win off of a mechanic that literally only a couple characters on the roster who can interact with defense meaningfully work with. And yes, there is a, I guess, kind of free-to-play option with Nicole because she does the defense reduction. But, like, okay. You got 3 units in the game that interact with this, and then multiple bosses with it. But hey, here's a new agent class that just ignores damage by ignores defense by themselves. The other one's a limited character, and then the other one is 1 support. It feels weird to have a mechanic like that introduced, and then it's also present in every single endgame. And just so you know right now, guys, there's 3 miasma bosses in Deadly Assault. That's the current state of the game. There's 3 bosses with miasma in Deadly Assault. And so, theoretically, if you didn't have Yixuan and you didn't have Trigger with her W engine, you only have 1 character in the game that can manage the defense of the enemies, and that's Nicole. The other 2 are limited characters, and one of them requires a limited character with their W engine.
Because you did not need Rupture Agents at all to deal with it, as defensive assist, dodge counters, and ultimates would all reduce the shield. And because ultimates were so effective against it in general, it made agents like Seth and Caesar's ultimate finally have a good use case, as in almost every other scenario, using their ultimate was a waste of time. And then furtherly, you were great.
My personal opinion is that feels like incredibly weak justification for saying what's good about miasma is, hey, now characters whose ultimate was a DPS loss to use before, now it doesn't feel like a straight up DPS loss to use these ultimates, when the real, I guess, take should really be, why were these characters even designed with ultimates that felt like a DPS loss in the first place?
Miasma. And while yes, this mechanic was designed with Rupture in mind, it still felt fair. And that's because you did not need Rupture Agents at all to deal with it, as defensive assist, dodge counters, and ultimates would all reduce the shield.
And this is why the mechanic feels like shit, because those are the fastest way to reduce the shield, but guess how ultimates work? Is they're also the most damaging parts of a character's kit. And so you're actively incentivized to throw in the strongest move in your kit on an enemy that has 99% damage reduction, which is just inherently feels stupid and like just anti common sense in a game. And that's why I mentioned the defense reducing effects of those other agents, because if you were to use them and then do things like your parries, your dodge counters, all of that, right? You would actually deal damage with those abilities and make it feel like less shit. And so my take is this mechanic feels awful to fucking fight against because your attacks are literally dealing no damage. And the only way for your attacks to literally deal more than 0 damage is to have those other characters available. And many of them are premium options. And it's just, sure, yes, you can sit there and wait for the boss to do attacks that will hopefully reduce it. But then at that point, it's kind of like, okay, it becomes like a waiting game of like, oh, is the boss doing something I can react to now? Because the devs have forced me to deal 0 damage. Unless I bring these premium characters in, that'll just damage them anyways. And so it's like, okay, little boy, little dog ZZZ player, time for you to jump through all these hoops now. Hope you're having fun. Oh, wait, you pulled Yixuan? Okay, just do whatever the fuck you want. Oh, you pulled Trigger? Okay, do whatever you want. Everyone else? All right, time to play my game. Some people like that. I personally, given that I like having freedom in how I can, like, you know, go through combat encounters, didn't feel that great. And so, yeah, I was just like, this mechanic feels like absolute dog shit. Hey, here's somebody that can just straight up ignore it. By the way, here are these other characters that can ignore it. One of them just costs 180 pulls.
And because ultimates were so effective against it in general, it made agents like Seth and Caesar's ultimate finally have a good use case, as in almost every other scenario, using their ultimate was a waste of time.
That's more of a design, I think that's a design problem in their kit. Yeah, if that's how a kit is designed, I think that's a failure on the character design team, or like the kit design, the combat design team. And it's like, I don't really view that as a plus of miasma.
And then furtherly,
that's just my take.
You were greatly rewarded for breaking the shield, as upon breaking a miasma shield and shield defense, the boss would immediately lose 15% of their max HP, effectively meaning you only had to do around 85% of the total HP to defeat them.
The unfortunate part about this argument is that people talk about this 15% HP reduction after beating a miasma shield, when in actuality, the comparison that you should be doing is, if all of my attacks had simply just done regular damage to the boss instead of dealing 0, I'm pretty sure I would have dealt more than 15% of its HP anyways in the time that it would have taken, and the same attacks I would have used to bring its shield down. So people are all like, okay, like it's actually a DPS increase for miasma, but they're not factoring in, what about all those attacks you literally shoved into the enemy to break this miasma? including your ultimates, which are the most damaging attack in your kit, why aren't you factoring in the loss damage from using those attacks and then throwing them into 99% defense reduction? Oh, wait. You can just play Yi Xuan, you can just play Trigger, you can just damage the enemy at the same time, and then get the 15% miasma reduction to their HP as well. You get both. And that's why the mechanic feels like shit. People really are putting like a lot of pressure and a lot of focus on, but it deals a 15% burst. What about all your lost damage when you threw all of those attacks that did literally nothing at it? Some people say, oh, just go onto your impact character. Just go onto your support character and break the shield that way. Don't use your DPS's ultimate on the shield. Well, then now I'm spending time on my support who wouldn't have, which I wouldn't be doing if the boss didn't have the miasma shield. Now I'm spending all this extra time focused on like breaking the shield when the reality is against miasmic enemies with a rupture agent, you just go onto your rupture agent and then break all their miasma while the rupture agent is on field. You deal damage and then get the burst at the same time. And it feels like such a stark contrast using a rupture agent and not using them in terms of what feels correct or what feels good. And it's safe to say it doesn't feel good unless you're dealing damage through the miasma. And there's very few characters in the game that actually enable you to do that. And I don't think 15% HP is even close to like enough of like a upside of you just sitting there and not dealing damage for like 20 seconds. I think you would have done more damage if the shield wasn't there and you were just hitting them normally with all of your attacks. That's my take.
And for Deadly Assault bosses, when you break their miasma, you do around 2.5% of their total HP. But just remember that Deadly Assault bosses have way more health than Shiyu, so 2.5% is still a lot.
But hey, all the time you were taking to break down the miasma shield of the DA boss, you were getting no points. Well, I guess you're getting some performance points, but you're not getting any points for hitting its HP. And so who cares about the 2.5% that I get after breaking it if I wasn't getting any score at all while I was breaking it? And again, this is the take, right? Kate clearly has his own sort of like viewpoint on miasma and stuff like that. I'm not going ahead and like disagreeing with his takes because they're literally fact. He's stating out facts. I don't think he's necessarily stating how he feels about the matter. And I'm saying that with this information that he's providing, here's my reaction. So my critiques that I'm talking about, or my sort of like my harsh words towards miasma, they're not directed at him because I don't really think he's expressing that much of like an opinion on it right now. He's just listing out the facts.
And on top of all of this, your entire team will gain 80 energy as well, allowing you to immediately capitalize after the shield break. So miasma...
This is unfortunately the thing. When a lot of people talk about like this energy refund that you get, wasn't I using energy to break down the miasma shield in the first place? And so doesn't the energy refund not even matter because I was using my energy to break the shield? And so essentially... it's like, if miasma wasn't there, I would have used my energy and I would have dealt damage. But because miasma was there, I used my energy, didn't deal any damage. I broke the miasma. Now I have my energy back and the damage is done. And so it's like, I would have like regenerated the energy in the time that it would have taken to deal the damage. So, you know, it just feels like a net equal. It just feels like the results would have been the same energy-wise and damage-wise. It's just, if you're using a rupture agent or somebody that ignores defense, you got the energy, the damage, and the break damage too. So it really just feels like anyone that doesn't have defense reducing effects is like a second-class citizen. And then if you do, you just get the bonus. That's really just been it. It feels like shit because it overly shills like 2 fucking characters on the roster. And then everyone else feels like a fucking second-class citizen interacting with this mechanic. I don't think anything has changed. It's the same take I still have. I've had the same take on this damn miasma mechanic since day one.
So far has not been an issue, and it is nowhere near as restrictive as some might have thought it would be. But that's not all the anniversary patch gave us, as we also got our first ever agent to get buffed in Ellen Joe.
Nobody's using this character. Let's just be honest here. Nobody's using this character right now.
And I bring this up to not really discuss Ellen's changes specifically,
because no one's using her, so it's like nobody would know what you're talking about anyways.
But more so what this buff meant for the future of the game as a whole.
I'm headcanoning right now, but I feel like that's part of the reason why.
as this buff is what led players to believe that if older agents start to underperform, the ZZZ devs will be able to breathe life into them once again. But even after this, some believe this may have just been a one-time thing and would never happen again. A fluke, you may say. But now with the Soldier Zero ambi buffs coming in the future, we now know that Ellen's buff was no mere fluke. And
I have conflicted feelings about this.
they will continue to do this when they deem necessary. But overall, throughout all patch 2.0, the endgame still felt fair, balanced, and not that big of an issue.
I have some complaints about this. I don't really like promoting the idea of a game requiring a rework of 2 limited characters prior to it even reaching its 1.5-year age mark. I view a game needing this 2 reworks already, and the game hasn't even been live for 1.5 years, as like a very sort of like, it has me questioning who's on the balance team of this game. Because yes, it is without a doubt good that reworks are happening, but it's also worrying that reworks are happening so frequently. Because it just begs the question of, why is it so hard to design characters properly for this team? Straight up. And the thing is that these aren't even like support characters. These are like the DPS characters that you base entire teams off of. You pull Anbi, and you're like pulling units to build a team with her. You pulled Ellen, and you got units like Lycon and Sukaku built to work with her. That was like kind of like, that's like the thing, right? That's how a lot of like these investments go in games like these. You pull the DPS, and then you pull the characters that work alongside the DPS. And then it's like the DPSs are just kind of fundamentally fucked up and not working properly. And at that point, I'm just like, that's a lot really early on. To have like 2 characters that literally feel like duds on the roster. Because Ellen and Silver Ambi were without a doubt standouts. In terms of, I saw people complaining about Silver Ambi literally day 1. Day 1 or 2, they were bitching about how her character worked. And it's just like, man, that's rough. That's rough to have this early on in the release. And so I think it's good that reworks are happening. I just think it's highly questionable that 2 DPS units have needed one already.
That is, until we get to the next chapter of this story. Chapter 6.
And this is the thing, right? Ambi's also the poster child of the game. So it's also like, how'd you fuck that one up?
The shill era begins. The talk around HP inflation really hit its peak recently with the arrival of the new daily assault boss, Defiler. God damn, she thick. What the fuck?
She looks diseased. If you're a fan of the Defiler, I think you're I think it's like you got questionable taste.
It was by far the most public outrage I have ever seen from the community before. And a lot of players will say that HP inflation needs to stop. And to that, I actually have to disagree, as I believe that statement isn't strong enough. So rather saying HP inflation needs to stop, we should be saying agent shilling needs to stop, or at least not be as egregious. But some of you may ask, what does shilling mean? Well, lucky for you, my good friend Nyx has a great definition for this. Shilling is when something is inherently designed to push a specific character or archetype to perform in their best possible conditions, and in some cases, even overperform. And this is why I can't stress enough that the real issue is far more than just an HP problem. And in fact, if
Nyx has very good takes about ZZZ. He's probably one of the most balanced CCs, or not really, he's not really a CC, he's more like a CC advisor. He has like particularly balanced takes about pretty much all aspects of the game, I would say.
If it was truly just HP only, then you as a player would not feel it nearly as bad. And to properly explain myself and point of view, we're going to have to go back to 1.4 really quick, when the first signs were being shown to us. Back in 1.4, when Miyabi released, there was a new boss, Bringer, added alongside her. And Bringer was by far the perfect Miyabi boss. From the buffs he gave, the hand phase taking great anomaly damage, and being much more susceptible to freeze than other bosses, as he was able to be frozen for longer periods of time. Everything about Bringer screamed Miyabi. And if you are a longtime viewer of my channel, you know that I have had the honor to be able to help countless of players for the past year, helping them all to improve their in-game results. And I can confidently say that even back in 1.4, I saw people struggling, and it was almost always against Bringer. And anytime I would try to help someone struggling with Bringer, there was almost always a common factor in place.
They didn't have Miyabi.
They didn't have Miyabi.
So, y'all remember that video I made 8 months ago? Yeah, I said she ruined the game.
And this could have been they were just taking a break from the game at that time. They also could have started the game after 1.4, or the one that shocks everyone till this day. Maybe they just didn't like her. But at the end of the day, not everybody was able to have her on their account for different reasons. So making bosses that shield new agents has been a thing since the beginning, and truth be told, there is nothing wrong with that to a certain extent.
Yep.
As it makes sense that a company like Hoyoverse would want to sell the new agents on banner.
My take is, hey, if you want to shill the new unit and make them look like a fucking absolute supreme superstar, no issues at all with me on my end. There's an issue begins to occur when your baseline difficulty, your baseline damage resistance, your baseline HP inflation, whatever, is so high that it feels like night and day in terms of clearability, using the shield unit or not using the shield unit, right? A lot of people will use the example of like Wuthering Waves in like floors 3 and 4 as like, oh, this is the most shilly shit ever. My point of view is that 95% of the teams in the game will clear floors 3 and 4. 95% of them will clear out a baseline. Zhang Liao Yinlin is one dog shit example that just can't do it because the team is actually cooked because Yinlin's a piece of shit, right? That's the one team in the game that genuinely feels like you gotta go through extra work to do it. This shill buff, whatever, it's not required. It's not needed to be able to clear. It makes Augusta and Yuno look fantastic. They look amazing. But it's not at the cost of pretty much 95% of the teams in the game. And this is the thing, right? I did mention that Yinlin and Zhang Liao can't clear. Before you draw any comparisons to ZZZ, if you just quick swap a little bit with this team, you will clear. But when I'm talking about teams that can't clear, I'm literally using the lowest common denominator in terms of playstyle. And let's just be aware of one thing in particular. When you're looking at Zhang Liao Yinlin hypercarry gameplay, the skill investment required to like learn these rotations and do these things is not even similar to the types of rotations that you'll see ZZZ players asking you to do to clear with older units in their Shiyu defense and deadly assault. Let's just get that straight. You look at an optimized Zhang Liao Yinlin clear, and then you compare that to a 4-star clear, or a standard unit clear in ZZZ, or a 1.0 unit clear in ZZZ, I'm just gonna say this to you. There's a lot more sweatiness involved in those ZZZ clears, and we're just testing these guys out in like the most standard 1-2-3 outro playstyle ever when we're making the conclusions that this team can't clear. I just want to be able to get that straight before we got ZZZ players going in and then saying, oh my gosh, you said Yinlin and Zhang Liao can't clear. They can't clear if you're playing them like a casual. Every other team basically clears in the game if you're playing it like a casual. That's the thing. And when you look at the Wu-Wah gameplay that we're talking about, you'll quickly realize, oh, they're not really doing anything particularly crazy at all to get these clears. I hope you understand that. That's a very clear delineation point that I think needs to be made.
New agents on banner. But where it starts to become a problem is when the bosses are so tailor-made to the new agents that playing other team archetypes into that boss feels horrible.
And this is where I really want to see Kate talk about some of like the baseline resistances and shit that are built into some of these DA bosses. It's actually disgusting. Like, just imagine there's a boss in Wuthering Waves where it's like, unless you hit him with a heavy attack, it has to be a heavy attack, by the way, he has 60% damage reduction. That's like a mechanic that's like in ZZZ. Hit them with this specific type of attack that only 4 characters on the roster have, and if you don't hit them with this specific type of attack, they will have like 30% defense or 30% damage reduction.
It's perfectly fine for different archetypes to thrive against specific bosses.
And that's what I mean by archetypes, because there are some bosses in ZZZ that are literally like, take 25% less anomaly and disorder damage. You must use a defensive assist. Otherwise, the boss has 30% defense reduction. Oh, great. I guess my Zhu Yen's just gonna go fuck herself. I guess my Astra, Zhu Yen, Nicole team can just go fuck itself. Because that team has 1 defensive assist on it, on my fucking Nicole. Oh, I hope I can make sure to do a double swap back to make sure that she's the one parrying everything the whole time.
But other archetypes should still be able to enter that fight with a fair challenge. And this is where we now go back to patch 2.1 and the arrival of Yuzuha. Yuzuha was the next big support added to Zenless Zone Zero, joining Astriel at the top of the tier list, being an incredible anomaly support while also giving general buffs as well. But with Yuzuha's arrival came a change.
And this one I think is one of the most egregious things I've seen these fucking devs ever do. And this is my take. After seeing what these devs have done after Yuzuha's release, this is actually why I quit the game. I haven't given an official reason for why I quit ZZZ, but it was because of this.
As all Deadly Assault bosses will receive a 10% anomaly buildup resistance. Now this isn't the first time they have done this, as
they released the character whose kit increases anomaly buildup, and then they released a hidden nerf to every single boss in the game. It's also in Shiyu defense that decrease their anomaly buildup. And so essentially, everything stays the same as before the nerfs. If you pulled Yuzuha and you use her on all your anomaly teams, and if you don't, all of your anomaly teams all got weaker. After that, I knew, personally, this is a Hoyoverse game. If there was ever any doubt in your mind that, you know, it might not be the Hoyo brand, they're gonna do something different, I don't really know how you could really still have that faith after knowing what this update was. Because they just went ahead, diminished the value of all these anomaly agents that you pulled, and to regain that value, they're forcing you to pull a limited character. And there's no other way to combat it. And that, to me, is fundamentally insane. After they have been shilling Anomaly this hard across the release of the game and making it this strong, and having the game be Anomaly tailored for literally the first 10 months of the game, then they do a stealth nerf to Anomaly after everyone has seen how strong it is, and they base their entire roster after around having Anomaly coverage. They then nerf it unless you pull Yuzuha. So it wasn't enough for Anomaly to be Giga Shield. Now it's getting shilled, it's getting killed, and then to make it playable, you gotta pull another one. That to me is crazy.
Back in 1.4, Pompeii specifically also had his anomaly buildup increased. But the reason it felt even worse in 2.1 is because of how it changed team rotations. All bosses needed 10% more buildup, while the agent that increased anomaly buildup for the team just so happened to be on banner. And on top of this, specific Deadly Assault bosses such as Miyabi and Defiler have an additional anomaly buildup multiplier added to them. This was such a significant change that months ago a friend named Shiro reached out to me on Discord, and he truly showed me how this affected his teams. And for those of you who don't know Shiro, he is a very good player. But there was many cases now, without Yuzuha on the team, old rotations just didn't work anymore. Or in some cases, agents would have to change their gearing requirements. Two great examples of this is Miyabi and Yanagi. Since their release, attack percent on slot 6 was better than anomaly mastery for them, because they both had enough buildup at a baseline that it didn't affect their rotations, making anomaly mastery not needed. But now fast forward to today, and if you watch any high scoring DA clear using Miyabi or Yanagi, they will both pretty much almost always have anomaly mastery on the 6th slot now. So the release of Yuzuha made a lot of players have to adapt, due to the universal anomaly crease. And this was Hoyoverse's way of shilling for Yuzuha, making her feel much better of a pull than she already was.
I'm just gonna be real with you. That's so bad. I'm trying to think about what would be like a comparable circumstance in Wuwa. Man, I'm trying to think about it. Fuck. It would be like they release Shorekeeper, the character that gives everybody on the team 12.5% crit rate and 25% critical damage, right? They release Shorekeeper, and then they proceed to have a TOA, and the buff is all your characters have 12.5% less crit rate. That's like what this character's release is like, just at a baseline, all the TOA floors in Wuwa, you have minus 12.5% crit rate during Shorekeeper's banner. And that's what these fucking devs did in ZZZ. I'm not gonna lie, it almost feels like malpractice. Because then you would have to go ahead and be like, all right, so I guess on my Zhang Liao, I'm going to replace my crit damage forecast with a crit rate one, because this stupid fucking TOA buff is making it impossible for me to crit. So yeah, we're gonna have to change the 4 slot from crit damage to crit rate now, guys. Or you pull Shorekeeper and then you just keep using your old stuff. It's not just during Yuzuha's banner, it's still going on. Yeah, just imagine Shorekeeper got released. She comes with a 12.5% crit rate reduction everywhere in all endgame. And then to this day, there's still a 12.5% crit rate reduction in all the endgame. Because I guess this anomaly build-up reduction that's requiring a change in builds or you to pull Yazuha is still in effect. Brother, I would be so pissed. I'm just going to be honest. Hearing this is pissing me off, and I told you I already quit the game. But hearing it is pissing me off.
But now fast forward to today with the release of Seed and the new Defiler boss. We are now seeing even more things added to the endgame to make certain archetypes shine. In the case of Defiler, not only is there already an additional anomaly build-up increase, but there is also a debuff that makes anomaly deal 25% less damage.
Remember how I said I hope Kate gets into and starts talking about some of the specifically overly ridiculous aspects of the boss? Yeah, it just, on top of the anomaly build-up reduction, it's like also just, they just takes less. Why does this game force you into literally using... My take has always been, this game already has elemental typing. You don't use the electro characters into the enemies that are electro immune or electro resistant. Why do you need a resistance to a type of fucking damage too? Isn't it enough that I have to use the ether agent against ether weak? But now I have to use an ether attack agent. I can't use the ether anomaly agent. Yeah, that one's not allowed.
And to really top things off, some players are saying that Hoyoverse is trying to slow Miyabi down, as they're adding more and more bosses that are starting to either A, resist ice, B, be unfreezable, or C, both.
Well, yeah, they want you to pull characters that aren't Miyabi, because probably there's a lot of people right now that have only been using Miyabi to clear the endgame because she's a fucking broken unit, and they're like, damn, we need more money. Let's make Miyabi feel like shit. Unless you pull Yazuha, that'll make us some money. Oh, there's too many people using Miyabi? Fuck it. We need to have the anti-M order. It's like that mission in Modern Warfare 2. Instead of being called No Russian, it's called No Anomaly. That's what Hoyoverse is doing right now.
But doing this has caused an unfortunate downside where other ice agents such as Ellen, Joe, and Hugo are now caught in the crossfire. So it seems to many players that Hoyoverse wants to create more bosses that really caters towards a specific archetype. But if you remember what I said earlier, at a base, there's nothing wrong with this. And it only truly becomes a problem when other archetypes feel they don't have a fighting chance anymore.
Yep.
And while I believe that we haven't gone that far yet, it is valid to have this concern for the future if they don't slow down.
If you're seeing the devs put in stealth nerfs that are countered by pulling a limited character, and then afterwards you see them just straight up add lines like this guy just takes less damage from anomaly. I'm gonna be real here. I don't really care what the current performance is. These are all new things that are getting added to the game that you just look at them and you already know this is going to be a massive fucking problem. This is the writing on the wall. There was already writing on the wall from this being a Hoyoverse game. This is like the writing on the wall that the Hoyoverse special, which is basically fucking up the endgame, making it so if you don't pull every new character coming out, you're gonna have an awful fucking time. That's the Hoyoverse special. They already did it in HSR. They already did it in Genshin Impact. This is the writing on the wall that they are currently doing it in Zenless Zone Zero. This is why I'm very glad that content creators are beginning to speak up about it now. A lot more in depth and in a lot more in detail. It could have been done before, but at least it's happening now.
Than just an HP increase. It really is all the following combined. HP, extra modifiers, debuffs, resistances, and in-game buffs, all at the same time. But next time you hear any conversation around HP inflation, I want you to all understand that this is much more than just HP.
And that's one thing that's true, right? But HP inflation is one of the easiest things to really identify and see firsthand because it's just a graph that's going up, right? But then you realize on top of this graph of all the HP going up all the time, there's also all these hidden stealth nerfs, all of these hidden build-up changes, all of these things, right, that are solved by pulling the next character happening in the background as well. I thought it was bad before, but it's literally worse now.
And it is a multitude of factors all working together.
And the ironically painful thing is, I've never been more glad to not be actively playing this game, because this sounds like suffering, bro. This sounds like bad.
Making more issues that could potentially lead us to dangerous roads in the future. Chapter 7. My message to the community.
Let's hear it. What's the call to action, amigo?
Recently, I have noticed that there are those among us that believe Anyone who speaks up on this topic is just trying to spread ill will. But I believe they may just be a little bit confused.
Confused is not the word that I would use in the situation. I'd probably use something similar to... Oh, should I say it, guys? Should I say it? You already know what I'm about to say. Do I say it? Okay. Sorry for showing the better game. Confused is not the word that I would use in this situation. It would be more like stupid.
So I thought it was a great time today to spread this message to you all. So everyone
I feel like I'm in hell.
can be on the same page. First things first. Constructive criticism is not toxic. Being positive isn't always good, just like negativity isn't always bad.
Music to my fucking ears.
Being able to critique the things you care for is healthy,
Oh, thank God.
and it can be the catalyst that prevents complacency.
Preach, brother.
Because once you become complacent, it becomes very difficult to try and change.
And that's the thing. I really love that point in particular. Because my personal opinion is that the ZZZ community was far too complacent knowing that Hoyoverse was their publisher. There's a baseline level of responsibility that I felt like you needed to have as a Hoyoverse game player to know what they have done with their other games and to be constantly on hyper-aware alert to see if the signs of what they did in other games would be happening in yours, in Zenless Zone Zero. And the biggest point behind all my videos regarding this topic was keeping in mind the very recent memories of Hoyo fucking up all their games. You'll notice, my videos on ZZZ's power creep and HP inflation started happening right after Mavuika and Sitlali got released in Genshin and did 60% more damage than every other team. Amphorius, where all the 3.0 units did 30%, 50, whatever, however much more damage than all the other teams, on top of all the power creep that HSR had already had in the past year. And my message was simply, look at how they fucked up all these other games in such a short amount of time. They just released Hoshimi Miyabi, who literally does all the same things that units like Mavuika and units like Acheron did. And I'm telling you, this is a time where you need to start being worried, because this is a sign of what's to come. Broken unit, and then HP scaling, HP inflation, that's directly feeding into how strong this broken unit is. And then it just went forward from there. And the community was, without a doubt, complacent during that time. And now that they've touched the boiling water, oh, this don't feel very good. Ooh, I don't like how they nerfed Anomaly behind the scenes and then released Yazuha, who makes Anomaly feel normal again. That's a little bit stinky. But you should have known it was coming because it's a fucking Hoyoverse game. And so, a good part of it is, yes, me going a little bit like, wah, ja, 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 because it's literally, I told you so. But another part of it is, well, this is just another case study in how Hoyoverse manages its games. And it's going to be very easy in the future. Hopefully, the third time is the charm, ladies and gentlemen. And next time Hoyo releases a game and somebody says, hey, let's be on the lookout. They've already they've already fucked the endgame in all these past 3 titles. Hey, they're probably going to fuck Honkai Nexus Anima in the ass too. Just so you guys know, so you should be on the lookout for when the bullshit is going to eventually hit the fan. Because you know it's going to happen because it's a Hoyoverse game. And that's it. It's become a fact at this point. If Hoyo makes a game, they will make it pay to win. Or they'll make it feel very close to pay to win.
And I, for one, do not wish that for this game's future.
And that's the unfortunate part is, after these Yazuha things and all of that, I wish the best for the community, right? I wish the best for them. I hope Hoyo takes their fucking head out of their fucking asshole, undoes this anomaly bullshit, fixes the endgame, fixes all this stuff, removes those restricted buffs, does all the things on the call that I said should, that we worked to make like a feedback list for, to fix the endgame, fix Deadly Assault, fix how they're shilling buffs, all of that. I would love if all of that happened. I would love if that all occurred. I would probably try the game again if it did. But the thing is, with the track record that has been had, I don't have very much faith that it's going to happen because that's what all the other communities in HSR and Genshin wanted as well. and then Hoyo spat in their fucking face multiple times, and then it made the game even more predatory. Oh, you thought Mavwika Sitlali was bad? Welcome to Lunar Bloom, motherfucker. Hey, we just put Nahida C2 on a unit's baseline kit. Hope you're ready. And the power creep in HSR and Genshin has literally never been worse. The game is comical to look at right now.
I speak up because I love. I speak up because I care. I speak up for a community that should want the best for their game moving forward. But if you still don't understand, let me put it to you simply. Someone speaking with passion does not equate to hate.
I personally think that if you're not speaking on addressing this immediately and stopping it where it is, and in my honest opinion, reversing a lot of the stuff that has occurred, you are actively making the game worse. I don't even, like, I'm gonna be real. That Yasuha anomaly buildup stealth nerf is, it actually almost feels criminal. It genuinely actually almost feels criminal that they did that. I'm not gonna lie. Low key, I'm surprised somebody in CN hasn't done like a lawsuit on it, where they just straight up diminish the value of an entire class of characters that they released like they released like 4 anomaly units, right? Bernice, fucking, what's it called? Vivian. They also released Yanagi, as well as Miyabi. And all 4 of those limited units got heavy fucking nerfs from this stealth anomaly thing. Low key, they should just get sued by CN, and then they would probably stop fucking this game in the ass. I'm surprised there's no lawsuit on that. They made all your anomaly characters weaker, and the only way to fix it is to fucking pull another anomaly unit. My take is, if ZZZ had the same player base size as Genshin, Genshin would Hoyo would actually get sued. But this is the thing. Maybe you guys just need to make it more vocal. I think it's unacceptable. Your Yasuha thing is literally unacceptable. I might make a separate video on this Yasuha anomaly buildup topic, and then actually compare it to the past times Hoyoverse has been sued in the past. And hey, maybe that'll be the trigger that needs to get going. Pun intended, because that's a character in Z. Maybe that will be the trigger that gets more action done in this community. We'll see.
We're not spoken up about in-game variety. Would there even be a deadly assault? Had we not spoken up about...
Only if they nerfed the character after release. That's what they literally did. They literally nerfed every anomaly character after release. 1,000,000%. Hey guys, Wuthering Waves added a permanent new feature to its endgame. The TOA... all arrow characters deal 30% less damage. It's permanent. Hey guys, I didn't actually directly nerf the characters. I just permanently nerfed the endgame for arrow units. Yeah, that's not a problem, right? That's a loophole, right? That's just what they did for Anomaly.
Hollow Zero. Would there even be a Lost Void? Had we not spoken up about older agents, would El and Joe have even been buffed? Change happens because of our actions.
So what actions did y'all do for them to add in an anomaly buildup nerf and then release Yasuha who counters it? I agree. The ZZZ devs sometimes feel like they're listening, but then they do shit like this, and it really makes you question, were they actually listening with positive intent? And that's the thing, right? Yes, feedback can lead to action, but what feedback led to their Yasuha nerf? Or anomaly nerf and then Yasuha banner? What action from the community led to that? I don't think there was one. And so you got to ask yourself, what caused that to occur? And when you think about it, the answer is, oh, Hoyoverse is one greedy fucking company. And you're making suggestions that are going to take money out of Dway's pocket that he's using to purchase his 69th yacht. He's probably going to tell you to just go fuck yourself and give him more cash.
Criticism is done constructively and not dismissively. And good decisions are elevated and highlighted for the good that they bring, and the game can continue to improve. So all I ask is the next time you see or hear someone discussing the game's future, please listen with intent and understand if they are only trying to bring the game down, or if they are someone who truly cares and their passion is just slipping out at the moment.
I think the realization is, and the realization that should probably be had across the community, is that why would I go ahead and make all these videos with the pure intent of killing your game? Hoyoverse is already doing that. I'm simply telling you to speak up to stop it. Simply look at the track record. I could have not made any of those videos and the game would still be where it is. You guys do realize that, right? I don't think anybody at Hoyoverse or the ZZZ development team is scouring my channel to look for critical feedback on how they should develop their endgame further. If I hadn't made those videos, you guys would still be here in this situation. And so, literally, I've just been warning you that this would happen and that you should raise your voices earlier to deal with it sooner rather than later. And I've just been right the whole fucking time. So hopefully, the next time somebody whistleblows for you in this accurate of a manner, you don't start screeching like fucking freaks and imply I'm trying to kill your game when literally all I have given you is A+ tier advice on what to do when you're in this situation. The unfortunate part is sometimes Hoyoverse just doesn't fucking listen. They didn't listen for HSR. They didn't listen for ZZZ. And now hundreds of thousands of players are quitting that game every month because the end game's a rotting pile of shit. And if ZZZ gets to that point, God forbid, literally go play another game.
And please never forget, united we stand, divided we fall. And if we are to trip one too many times, it could be game over for us all.
Okay, that got a little bit dramatic there. Game over for us all? Huh?
Zenless Zone Zero is a special game for me, as it is a game that I genuinely love. But it is also the game that made me give YouTube another chance. And I would not be on this platform right now connecting with so many of you every single day if it was not for ZZZ. And considering how much YouTube has changed my life over the past year, I will always feel a little bit indebted to it. But I promise from here on, if things need to be said, I will say them.
Based.
And if there's something that needs to be praised, I will praise them.
Based.
As I believe it will be healthy for us all to acknowledge the good and the bad. That way we can continue to give honest feedback to the developers. Because I want nothing more than this game to thrive for as long as it can and keep that fire burning.
This is the analog that I'm going to make for you. There's a lot of creators like that for a lot of games. A lot of people who built their career on Genshin. A lot of people that built their career on HSR. A lot of people that built their career on Wuwa. A lot of people that built their career on ZZZ. And part of that is just also knowing when that game is fucking up so that you don't drive away a huge portion of the audience. And Kate doing this, I think, is one of the best things that somebody that actually likes the game can do. Because it turns out talking about issues that people are keeping top of mind is actually something that both gets views and then also helps the community. Some people don't realize this. They called it drama farming. I basically told him, make videos like this that are important to the community, all that. I told that to the entire group of ZZZCCs on the call. They will tell you it's drama farming. They're stupid. And the thing is, the community is filled with people like that. And unfortunately, right, I feel like Kate might get some pushback about certain things in the future. That's just the price of being the whistleblower. That's just the price of being the messenger that's trying to tell these people what's going wrong, why it's wrong, why it must be an issue, and why it needs to be fixed. They don't like hearing that sometimes. But it is a topic that gets views, and it is something that needs to be said. Let's not go ahead and just condemn people for saying what needs to be said. I don't know why that's become so meta nowadays.
Thank you all for believing in me. And thank you for watching this video.
All right. Awesome video by Kate. The react has gone on long enough. I think he has a couple more words at the end, but I think we've already given enough of our own. This was an awesome video. I'm glad to see. I don't even know if I want to call it like taking accountability. This is really just somebody like standing on business. And I think portraying the details of this situation without a lot of kitty gloves on. The only thing I would say is that I personally don't just agree with his baseline opinions on miasma. I've already listed out what my misgivings are with the mechanic, and hopefully they make sense from your end as well, because that's another lever that these devs can pull on top of their disgusting practices with anomaly to continue fucking up the game even more, right? So just think of it as another opportunity to have levels of hypervigilance with these devs, because when it comes to Hoyoverse, once again, you have to think about their track record. If this video isn't enough, and the examples listed in this video aren't enough for you to be hyper-vigilant about Hoyo's track record when it comes to future updates and future changes, I don't know what will. because they do dumb bullshit like this all the fucking time. This chapter 6 is a great expose, and so just be on the lookout for it. Call it out when it happens, and don't give them an inch. That'll be that for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, awesome video. I'll see you all next time. Peace.